Good morning. Good morning. I don't know why I'm sitting down. Like, I just find myself sitting down. Anyway, warm welcome. Good morning. Episode 300. Can you believe it? It only took about 6 years. 6 years and a bit. We started on the 20th of March, 2020. And that was episode 1. We were laughing yesterday. Ben was looking at the very first episode and the very first comment. And the very first interaction we had was with Terence. And Terence said, "Yes, Francois, I can hear you." So it's a while back. Anyway, so excited for today. We're going to celebrate throughout. And we have got a bunch of people here on stage, I almost want to say, and in the background with me. First and foremost, Nikki McDonald. Nikki, welcome to episode 300. She's going to look at all the latest, greatest news what happened. This has been a busy week. But yeah, so looking forward to that. Then we've got Rudolph is here, and he's back with Money, Meaning, and Beyond. And also Kobus here, all the way from Istanbul, Kobus Klein. We've got 2 Kobuses in the house today. So Kobus is here all the way from Istanbul with the Advisor's Path. And then Lenae's got a couple of announcements. And then I get into my conversation with the one and only Kobus Barnard from Avalon and Allegiance Consulting. And we're going to look at what CRM is really supposed to be. Where are we going wrong with CRM? And I'm not only talking from a technology point of view. It is primarily, I believe, from a how we use it point of view. And that's what we're going to get into today. So anyway, excited for that.
Welcome to Propulsion, the weekly show for financial planners and advisors who want to build better, more successful businesses. I'm your host, Francois du Toit, and every week we dive into the practical strategies that matter, from growing your client base and improving your services to developing yourself and your team. Whether you're running your own practice or you're part of a larger firm, you are guaranteed to find actionable insights to help your business thrive. So with that, welcome, and let's get into today's episode.
Right, so as you've heard, Kobus Barnard is my guest today. And just a little bit about Kobus, for those of you who don't know him, which I think is literally impossible. Like, everybody knows him. It feels to me like Kobus is one of those guys. And he is the CEO and co-founder of Allegiance Consulting. He has a background in law, tax, and business, and an MBA to top it off. I don't know where he gets time for all this stuff. Kobus has led Allegiance's transformation from a legal consultancy, that's how they started back in the day, into one of South Africa's leading fintech firms. And under his leadership, they launched Avalon, which is a powerful financial planning platform that's now used by over 7,000 financial advisors. He's deeply passionate about helping people live remarkable lives through smarter financial strategies. And today, Kobus and I, we're going to explore his unique take on CRM, client relationships, and the role of AI in financial planning. I can't wait for that. So here we go. Kobus, goeiemorgen, good morning. Welcome back to the show. How's it?
Good morning, Francois. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity and the invite. I feel very privileged, and even more privileged that your 300th show or episode. So before I start, I would like to say congratulations, Francois. 300 shows or episodes. It's a massive and a spectacular milestone. I still remember those early conversations. I don't know if you remember, but I remember those early conversations when the whole propulsion was still just a sparkle in your eye, and just an idea. And here you are, not just living your dream, but basically literally propelling the industry forward. So I think, just as a sidebar comment, because we have to make a moment about this 300th episode, right? Your content is always relevant, punchy, and full of heart, and the quality of your show, it's just spectacular. So it's incredible what happens when passion meets purpose, and you're a shining example of that. Congratulations, Francois. Yes, to your next 300.
Yes.
Yes, I'm allowed to start drinking at 9 o'clock.
So this is the best I can do for now. Thank you very much, Kobus. It's very, very kind of you. Thank you so much. Yeah, right. So let's get into the conversation, Kobus. There's a lot that we need to talk about. So I want to get into it. I want to get as much out of this time with you as possible. I think you and I probably need 3 hours. So let me not take 1 minute or 1 second from this. Let's just start off with sort of a little bit about where everything started. Remember, there's one thing I want to say. You had a remarkable impact on me, or a lasting impact on me, when you invited me to the 20th anniversary of Allegiance Consulting, and went to Pretoria, and we were there, and you stood on stage and you said something that changed my entire outlook on business and certain things. So here's what you said. You were giving some stats, like a good person would do. Obviously, we like to talk some stats. And you were telling us how much tax Allegiance as a business has paid in that 20-year period. At that, I mean, you've since had a 25th and whatever, but that one was the specific one where I was at. And when you mentioned that and how proud you were of the amount of tax that the business has contributed to the country, my whole mindset flipped. So you've got a different way of framing things and looking at things. Like most people don't want to pay tax. We're unhappy about all of these things. So I wanted to say that to you. Just understand that from that day forward, I had a different view. I've been saying different things to different people because we are contributing to a country in our small way in what it is that we do. So thank you for that. I did want to say that to you as well. Anyway, that was not my question. My question is this. So
because I didn't prepare for that one.
you started off as a legal consultancy business, right? I think it was in the obviously early 2000s, around about there, and you did that. But then, when did this shift start to happen? Like, why did you go now from a legal consultancy to basically tech or fintech?
Francois, that's a fairly profound moment for us. So we tried to solve our own, as legal consultants, we had actually a fantastic journey. It's probably one of the best jobs ever, because you meet clients, new clients almost on a daily basis, and you have the privilege to kind of see what they do, and you meet the creme de la creme of financial advisors, and you have the privilege to sit next to them and see you see them perform their genius, and managing the expectations of clients and managing the genius, or extracting what clients actually want. So I was very privileged to see that. But at some stage, our diaries were booked up literally 3 months in advance. Now, you can imagine if you're making your money from hourly consulting fees, it's not a great way to earn a living. And every month you start at zero. There's no indexes and no second year commissions coming in. You literally start every month at zero. So that was emotionally draining. And so we wanted to solve, one, our capacity problems. You can imagine, you can't run a business that's booked 3 months in advance. You have to address that problem, or otherwise the market finds something else. The second thing is, so we had to find a way to kind of scale complex advice. That was our first need. And the second thing, from a business model perspective, it was emotionally draining to start every month literally at zero. So I wanted a model that with more sustainable recurring income. And that's how the fintech was born. But I have to mention this. So we pitched our concept. We pitched our concept way back to automate complex advice to Sanlam, and they afforded us an opportunity to kind of get into fintech. So I'm eternally grateful for Sanlam for affording us that opportunity. But what you don't know is that we had actually 2 failed attempts before we started this journey. So we tried something and then it didn't work, and we tried something else and that didn't work. And finally, I think the third time we actually hit the sweet spot to get into tech. Sidebar comment.
I love it. But that's the. I swear I get goosebumps about stories like this, because I mean that is what it is about. It's not about winning. It's not about losing. It's not about the ups and downs and the whatever. It is just like, well, it is about the ups and downs, I think. So that's what makes any roller coaster exciting. I'm pretty sure, like a roller coaster that just goes, it's not going to be fun. So well done for keeping at it. And then just a last, just a brief question, just around Avalon as a whole. I mean, obviously, all of this knowledge and experience that you had in consulting to various different kinds of financial advisors, and primarily looking at obviously helping them with their the more complex clients, I would say. But how did all that legal and the practical financial planning and the consulting, how did all of that play into the way that you developed Avalon in the end?
I think that was it. It was both a burden and a blessing. So, as legal consultants, we kind of find our legitimacy in doing that calculations to the 8th decimal, right? You had a very short time with the client to show. Now, normally, if I can just sit back for a moment and say, normally, if you go with an advisor, they normally prime the client saying, we're bringing somebody very smart from very far away to help you engage with the client on a specific matter. So clients are already primed by the time. As a legal advisor in the old days, I'm not sure if it's still valid today, but in the old days, the client was already primed. By the time you get there, you maybe have an hour to display that your value. And we found our legitimacy in doing the calculations to the 8th decimal. We found our legitimacy in through financial engineering, and we've refined that to a art. And what it did, how we brought that into Avalon and how that actually changed our approach to Avalon was to say, and I realized today, right? Today we understand clients don't buy the 8th decimal calculation. It's a hygienic factor. They want to trust what you present to them. They want to trust what you present to them will keep them on a path of better financial decisions. We understand that. But it empowered us to engineer Avalon in a different way. We started with the financial engineering and how we love to over-engineer things, especially when it comes to financial planning. So it did serve as a absolute blessing, because I think what we try to build, we try to honor, and you can't get rid of those the consulting view, right? We are constantly haunted by the engagements and the long history of engagements, and we try to make sure that whatever is presented to the clients, we know how difficult it is to get an appointment. We know how difficult it is to optimize that time with the client, and we know how important it is that you cannot embarrass the advisor when he engages with the client. So we understand the need for financial truth. Our transformation started with, yes, we want to do the engineering, we want to get the engineering right. Today we understand the context, and it took us a long time to understand it's not about the engineering. The engineering is a hygienic factor. It needs to be right. And it needs to bring insights to the advisor so that it empowers that conversation with the client. So the burden side, we sometimes over-engineer the engines way, way, way too much. But I'm glad we actually did that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, perfect. But let's get into this conversation, Cobus, because I want to talk about CRM. I want to talk about AI in all of this, and I also want to talk a little bit about the future of financial planning if we have enough time. So I think what is important for me is to understand, how does Cobus view CRM? Like, what is CRM really? What is CRM really about? What is your take on this? Because obviously, I mean, you've rebuilt many parts of Avalon over the years, and to phenomenal, like really a great experience. And then you said, guys, it's time for the CRM. I'm pretty sure that was the conversation. I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure that's what went on. But how do you define CRM, and what is it? What is CRM and what is it not? I think particularly in our space.
I want to undress my jacket for this one. So, Francois, so long story short, and this is just my observation. Number one, we most certainly don't think we have arrived. Number two, I don't think I am the final authority or any authority on this. What I can share is our journey and our experience, and how we saw CRM and how it culminated into the platform that we have today. So technology must solve a business problem, right? So in my mind, and you can imagine if you support 3,000 intermediaries, independent intermediaries for almost 2 decades, sitting next to them, selling to clients, you cannot but otherwise but learn the business problem and get an insight into the business problem. And the first thing I noticed is that no man is an island. So in many of the engagements, what we observe, especially with the larger organizations, but it's not just there. What we observe is clients do not live in a silo. So when you engage with the client specifically around, for example, investment or estate plan, you have that engagement with the client, and the client would say something during that consultation about, for example, his short-term insurance or his banking needs. Not translated into needs, translated into serious financial decisions that will affect their financial futures. So for us, the first observation that I had, and it was like the swell in the sea, that any CRM, in my mind, must start in a collaborative way. So because your clients don't operate in silos, although the conversation that you will have within a specific framework would be about a specific topic, but no man is an island. And if you really want to manage a client over their lifetimes and extract the value of that engagement over the lifetime, and make sure that you add value over the various life stages of a client, you need to understand that that client doesn't live in a silo. And to do that, to truly manage the entire life cycle with the most important financial decisions that clients will take, you have to collaborate. And you have to collaborate outside your area of discipline. So in my mind, our first port of call was to say, when we built our CRM, we try to articulate a collaborative or a collaboration framework. So where you can collaborate with clients inside and outside your organization across specific market areas. So you will see this is a theme right from day one, that we attempted to build something for advisors where they can manage the relationship with the client. The very first thing was we built a collaboration framework that can collaborate around different market areas. And we introduced a concept called network partners. So, and those network partners are contextual in terms of the market area. So you could have a collaborative agreement with a short-term advisor, or somebody that's specializing in medical aid, or somebody specializing in employee benefits. And if you can collaborate around your client, you're actually putting a Chinese wall around your client. And for us, it was very important to empower the advisor to manage that collaboration. An example, what inspired that. One of the advisors, he started out as an independent advisor. I'm not going to mention his name, and he's the manager of a significant corporate brokerage today. He said, Kobus, 2:00 in the morning, the a client phones me, and highly distraught. My vehicle has just been stolen. And I said, but you're not his short-term advisor, are you? No, I'm not. That's the point. I'm not his short-term advisor. So, but the client at that moment when it mattered most contacted his most trusted advisor. So imagine if he could have just quickly said, no worries. Let me quickly see if this is the person that you need to speak to, but I will quickly arrange that for you. So if you have a collaboration framework and a system where you can actually manage that collaboration, you can truly inspire clients to kind of take them through the entire life cycle and the entire life. So, and it also speaks to kind of the future of where advice is going, and I'll get to that part. So first thing is we built a collaboration framework. The second thing that allows you to collaborate within your market area and outside your market areas. The second thing that we started with our CRM is we had a very strong view of, and it was an emerging view, And today we articulate it as we help advisors to help we empower advisors to help clients discover, achieve, and live a remarkable life. Now that might sound esoteric, but our entire engagement is built around that. And I loved what Kobus Klein said because he articulated it perfectly. And I thought when after he spoke, I thought I actually don't have to say anything. So, but the long story short is, if you think about CRM and if you think about it is not something that must live in a silo in itself. It must solve your entire engagement with your client, and it can't be disconnected from your planning conversations with the client. In my mind, it must be a connected entity. So, and what do you want to do? So, how would you like to connect that? Around what? So, around what do you align that? You have to have a very strong transformative purpose. Now, we have a massive transformative purpose, and that's, like I said, helping clients discover, because clients don't know what they want. Achieve, that in my mind is about two legs, and that is behavioral, managing the behavioral tax of clients and the financial engineering. And live, and to live a remarkable life, you kind of need three things: time, money, and health. And a remarkable life means, in essence, you must help clients figure out their passions and aligning their passions and guide them to align those passions with their genius to make money and essentially help the world. So in that statement, if you think about the life cycle of a client in the accumulation phase and in the decumulation phase, in the accumulation phases, there are a number of moments that matter. So the idea with opportunities is all of those moments that matter on a client's life, both in the accumulation phase and the decumulation phase, you need to record that. That to me is the most foundational thing that you're supposed to do when you manage a client relationship. So it's foundational. Because if you know the moments and if you understand the moments of meaning and matter over a client's life, and you can guide a client to what, even the moments that's coming that they don't expect, and you can or you can kind of record them in a single place, a couple of things happen. One, you better understand what matters to clients. And two, you kind of start predicting your own income in your practice years ahead. So if you can do that, and so we had something we called a business action agenda. It was an agenda for the client and an agenda for the advisor and an agenda for the banker and an agenda for the auditors. So all of the agendas had the exact same items on. And the idea was to collaborate around the vision of the client, what is valuable to the client, the values and the goals of clients, goals and dreams, and to kind of align all the parties around those commitments. And that, so for me, it was about articulating what was important to the client, the values of the client. It was about articulating and getting some place where you can kind of capture all of that and manage that over the lifetime of the client. So, and I just want to, one more point I would like to make. Kobus said something very important, and that is the essence. The data, capturing the data and capturing things, whether it's on opportunities or translating that into cases, or whether it's capturing leads or managing service requests from clients, or all of these things are good to have, but one thing and one thing only you need to extract from a CRM is the CRM, and whatever you capture, whether it's contextual notes or smart notes or whatever you capture, it is all about making sure that you have an authentic, truthful, sincere relationship with the client. That is the equal sign. So all of the rest doesn't really matter. It's all about that authentic, truthful relationship with the client.
And I think, like when just listening to you, Kobus, is that not once that you say, well, this is a good place and we want to make it pretty where you can keep your telephone numbers and your email addresses and all that kind of stuff. Like, you were very much focused on the relationship side of things. And this is the thing that I think is missing from the way that we use CRMs, versus probably what they are capable of doing as well. So we need a strategy, I believe, if you want to use CRM well, in that sense, as far as that's concerned. Like, all the things is great, as you mentioned, like tick boxes, but it's not really helpful if we don't use it in managing it's a client relationship management system, not a client record management system. I think that's quite the distinguishing thing there. And also, I mean, like one of the things that's really, for us from a more practical point of view, that's worrying, if we see where things are going from an AI perspective and the things that are possible. I mean, the things we show people in our training, the things that we use, etc. All of those things need one thing, and that is solid data. And that's the thing that we don't have, right? So the data is sitting there in a system, but we don't have the right data because we only put in names, surnames. We use it like a Rolodex instead of a management. I always go back, to, you remember, like, before all these systems, everybody had these thick, dirty yellow files. The file wasn't physically dirty. It was just that ugly yellow that somebody chose for a file color. But I mean, everything used to be in there. Every conversation, every like everything about that client. And some clients had 3 files this thick, and that's what it was. But why we must replicate that in a CRM world? You have to have that in your CRM, but the CRM must have the capability to do that as well. So I wanted to add that to what you were saying. And I think a lot of what you're saying is on that, because if we focus on the relationship, then that's the kind of information that goes into the system. But now we have this amazing new friend called, somebody called him Frikkie the other day, but it's AI. And, like, how does AI now come and play into this? I mean, is there something that, because at the moment where I'm sitting, I know of one CRM in South Africa that from a financial advisor point of view that has integrated AI, and they've done a lot of work. It feels like most other people are sitting and waiting to see where this thing is going and whether they should or should. I'm just saying, maybe I just don't know that they are developing things. But I mean, this is a big thing. So how do you view that? Is it valuable? Was this built with that in mind? Are there some AI stuff integrated as well? And how do we practically make use of that? I think is probably the big question I want to
ask. Francois, so going back to your Rolodex, if you think about the old days, you had the Rolodex for the numbers because it would be helpful to kind of see the client's number but you only use the Rolodex for kind of finding that client's number, right? You knew the client had 2 kids. You knew that one was a special needs kid. You knew the client's wife's name, right? You knew their ups and downs and their struggles. So it was that authentic relationship with the client. And so that was in the old days. If we want to replicate that, the first thing is the fact that you knew the knowing part of the client. You need context. So context. So Francois, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I am obsessed with artificial intelligence. Not from the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022. I'm obsessed with AI because I know what it can do for us and how it can help us. So the first thing we did, and I think it's extremely valuable, but let me explain to you what we did. And I might say things that I probably shouldn't at the moment, but let me explain to you what we did. So we kind of did a skunk works. So we worked in the back room on AI. We integrated. The first thing we did with AI, we understood. So I was interested in one aspect of AI and one aspect only, the ability to reason. And I could see the absolute exponential explosion in reasoning. From the first time that the first test we ran, we had hallucinated and made up stuff, and it didn't understand the difference between making up stuff and the actual truth. And I saw that evolution in reasoning. So for me, the first thing that we wanted from the AI was reasoning. what we did is we first fused it, what we call CFI, a contextual financial identity. So we created Avalon in building blocks. It was painful. It took us a longer time. But the first thing we did intentionally, and this was 15 years ago, was to build a CFI, a contextual financial identity that is, it is open architecture, it can be consumed. Then we built advice tools on top of that. So the contextual financial identity of the client is everything about, it's a digital twin in the cloud of a client. So meaning it understands income, expenditures, assets, liabilities, the policy schedule, the products it has. So we fused the AI with the contextual financial identity of the client. We fuse the AI with everything on the CRM. In other words, opportunities, leads, opportunities of a client specifically, not leads, opportunities, tasks on that specific client, service requests of that specific client, file notes, contextual file notes, client undertakings, advisor undertakings, recommendations, all that context. That to me was context. And then we've taken that concept a little bit further. Long story short is, before you integrate purely into the CRM, if the AI understands the context, and I'm going to explain in 2 minutes what that actually means. So long story short, you're an advisor. Client says, I want to see you in an hour. Happily, you've got a space in your diary and you see the client. And you type into Avalon or whatever system you use, help me prepare for this meeting. I'm seeing the client in an hour. Highlight the 3 biggest concerns. Highlight the 3 things that we should be focusing on. Highlight if there's, please just look at the context. So we've one step back. We also fused it into Dreamster. It's a client engagement application that looks at the wheel of life. In other words, the client's values. It looks at the client's passions and interests and a bit of a diagnostic. So it has all of that context, and it can prepare the advisor for a meeting in a couple of seconds. In 90 seconds, you have that preparation. It's because of the context of the client. So the information is relevant to the client, and it is acutely looking at the everything related to that client. And then it gives relevant, it applies that insane reasoning, and it gives relevant guidance to the advisor. So we originally thought that, it also transitioned, we also transitioned in that. We've built Ariel, we call our AI entity Ariel. We've built Ariel to be a kind of Jarvis suit for advisors, the Iron Man suit, to absolutely elevate the advisor into the having a super assistant that can do things not previously possible. It is not inconceivable that you will tell your AI, you will tell Ariel to phone the client, to make an appointment, to schedule an appointment, to prepare. So it is literally on a path to become an absolute super assistant for the advisor, not replacing the advisor. And what will that bring? That will bring, one, the ability to scale hyper-personalized advice.
And that's a big one, right? Because, I mean, if we think hyper-personalized advice at scale, I mean, there's always a big part in your business where we really struggle. If there's one thing about financial advisors and planners is that they want to help everyone. I don't think that, your business might have a focus to say, this is our ideal client, but at heart, we want to help everybody. And this is one of those things that are also going to help us deliver on that, because I think a lot of people are actually feeling guilty with the fact that they, from a profitability point of view, can't help clients that they might, from a human being point of view, if I might put it that way, would have liked to help, and it's just physically impossible to always do that. So I think there's so many more things beyond this, apart from you see scaling business. It could be from profitability, but also from reach point of view, which is quite exciting. I think. And these are not like, one thing I want to say as we end off, Cobus, and we're out of time. But the thing is that we are not here sort of dreaming up things. These are things that are already happening. It's already you're doing this. Like it's not something that is in 2030 kind of thing. There's many of these things that we've been talking about today is already possible, and it is already built into systems and all of that kind of thing. So is it possible for people to experience that yet with inside of Avalon? Can you just maybe share a little bit if they are interested at looking, then how can they do that?
Yeah, so Francois, two things. One, if you want to participate in the beta, it's on invitation at the moment. So you can email avalon@allegiance.co.za and just indicate your interest to participate in the beta program for the AI or Ariel specifically. And if you want to play around with the new CRM, you're more than welcome to email us at avalon@allegiance.co.za, and we will give you space to test out and kick the tires and see if this can work for you. Francois, I just want to briefly mention. You've struck something. I don't want to say we struck oil, but we know there was a moment, right, when the AI we test a number of clients, and one of the fictitious clients we tested was a doctor in Cape Town working 80 hours a week, and when the AI advised and the top 3 concerns, one of the most concerns is the AI picked up the work ethic of the client and said, I'm concerned about this client's time, and looking at the diagnostic, it was concerned that the client was needing development areas specifically on expressing and self-expression, living this remarkable life, because you can't live a remarkable life if you work 80 hours a week, right? We knew that we struck something when the AI highlighted the concerns of the client that went way beyond product, and it focused on the well-being of the client. So I invite you, and if you want to see a demo of this, we will arrange a specific Avalon day to actually show you that to show you what we mean. And if you want to participate in the beta program, you are very welcome to send us an email, and we will gladly open up so that you can actually see what we have done.
Awesome. Cobus, man, I had lots more questions, but thank you very much for joining us this morning and at least giving us a glimpse into this. 2 takeaways for me. The one is, well, there's probably a lot more, but number one is that, CRM is a relationship management tool, and we should be intentional about how we use it. So get to know your CRM well, and make sure that we use it. It's not only for keeping records and managing tasks. There's much more to it than that. And then AI is going to take this stuff just to a whole another level. We all know that, but you should be working on your data right now and understanding how can I get more of the relevant stuff into my CRM so that I'm able to use that data as well. Cobus, fantastic. I always said thank you, but fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me today. And you didn't know when you booked today's slot when I sent you, Cobus, I want to chat to you on the show. Just go book a date that works for you. You didn't know that it would be our 300th. In fact, I didn't know at the time it's our 300th episode. So thank you very much. And we really appreciate it. Keep on doing the good work. And I'm excited to see more about what it is that you bring to market with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francois. Much appreciated. And I truly appreciate the opportunity. I feel honored. And once again, congratulations on your 300th episode. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Cobus. Thank you. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us today. I am capped now, I think, at 300. There we go. And I'm going to play us out with a little video. Thanks for joining us.
It started with one episode, one camera, and one bold idea to create something for financial planners by financial planners. We didn't know what it would become. We just showed up. we had the honor of hosting industry experts, disruptive thinkers, and advisors who are shaping the future. We talk systems, strategies, clients, compliance, and everything in between. And through it all, one thing has stayed the same. You showed up. Thank you for watching, commenting, sharing, and showing up week after week. This show has never just been a podcast. It's a movement powered by people who care. You've helped build something bigger than a show, a community. This is just the beginning. Here's to the next 300.
Thanks for joining us on Propulsion. If you found value in today's episode, then there's plenty more where this came from. You can find all our previous episodes right here on the podcast as well as on our YouTube channel. And talking about the YouTube channel, we go live every single Friday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. and we host many different guests, and we also talk about very interesting topics. And on the live show, there's also some incredible segments hosted by some of the most well-known and influential financial planning professionals. So you are most welcome to join us every single Friday. Put it in your diary and we will see you there. And on that note, also please do check out propulsion.co.za/community for all of the goodness and learn more about how you can become part of our amazing community and how that would benefit you, your business, and your career. So on that note, stay curious and keep raising the bar.